Hey everybody, welcome on our channel. In this video we are gonna see, what if Naruto was the son of the forger and got harem? Part 2. If you are new on the channel, don't forget to subscribe our channel and like the video too. So without wasting any more time, let's start the story. Mr. D will read next, Dragon said, an evil grin on his face. The others looked at him in bewilderment. Mr. D, however, narrowed his eyes at the cloaked figure. And why should I? Mr. D asked snidely. Because this chapter pertains to our bet, Dragon told him. That caught everyone's interest. Mr. D snorted. Yeah, sure, why not? Maybe now he can have some wine. Oh. And before you start, you cannot mispronounce anyone's names, buddy, Dragon added. Why? Mr. D narrowed his eyes. Because if you do, I'm shooting you with this, he explained and pulled out the gun he threatened Apollo with. Everyone was wondering what was so special about the gun until Hermes gasped in shock. Dragon turned to him with a smile. Something wrong, Hermes? How he breathed in shock. Did you get your hands on the god killer? I just walked in and took it, the cloaked man said with a grin. What are you guys talking about? Percy asked. And what's up with that gun? Dragon grinned at the son of Poseidon. This is the god killer, a powerful hand cannon from the Nicolas Cage movie Drive Angry, which I don't recommend to anyone. Basically, anyone shot with this gun will cease to exist. It literally destroys your body and soul at once. Everyone paled at the power of the weapon. Zeus couldn't even say anything because he was afraid Dragon might shoot him with it if he uttered a word. Apollo, well scared of the gun, couldn't help but chuckle mentally at everyone's reactions. He was the same way when Dragon threatened him with it. Dionysus paled and nodded rapidly as he snapped his fingers and the book instantly appeared in his hands. He flipped through it quickly and found his place. Chapter 4. Naruto at camp, he read quickly. So we get to see Naruto and how he affects the camp? Piper asked. Oh, this is gonna be good. Leo grinned madly. As soon as Soul landed on the ground, Thalia quickly got out and on the ground, hyperventilating. Her phobia acted up real badly in there. She had never been that scared in her life. Thalia shivered. Percy patted her back reassuringly, which made her smile in appreciation at him. Jason, however, narrowed his eyes, but didn't say anything. He knew Percy was just trying to comfort his sister. Everyone else got out slower than her, but some were ruffled up because of that flight. Annabeth and Percy had to carry an unconscious and foaming Grover. They got 2 demigods to carry the satyr so they could go to the big house to inform Chiron about what happened. When all of the demigods went in, the hunters to their cabin to settle in, they spotted Chiron and Mr. D playing their usual card game. Chiron spotted the demigods and smiled, but when his eyes landed on Naruto, his eyes widened and his jaws dropped. Naruto? Chiron said in shock. At the sight of him, Mr. D also got wide eyes and dropped his Diet Coke can. Mr. D stopped right there and looked slightly concerned. He never dropped his Coke in shock. Never. He looked over at Dragon and was rewarded with an evil grin. The others who knew Dionysus were shocked as well. Naruto smiled at the centaur and wave, hey Chiron, long time no see, in the blink of an eye, Naruto got pulled by bone-breaking hug. Naruto, my boy. I thought you were dead. Chiron said, his eyes misty. He let go of Naruto, giving the blonde some time to breath after that hug. The demigods that knew Chiron winced. Yeah, his hugs are painful, Percy mumbled. And be more painful than Tsunade Bachan's hugs, Naruto said. Not only do I lose my breath, but she nearly breaks my back. Not dead, Chiron. Just injured. Had to heal up before I could come back, Naruto said. Chiron nodded in understanding. From the quest Naruto took, he was bound to get greatly injured. But where had the blonde been for the past 5 years? That's what we'd all like to know. Where have you been, bro? Leo asked. Naruto shrugged uselessly. You do realize I haven't lived that Naruto's life, right? After my fight with Sasuke, our lives differentiate. Well, he does have a point, Annabeth conceded. Behind Percy, Mr. D slowly went to Naruto, holding that shock expression. Naruto saw the god and reach under the cloak, getting dozens cans of Coke. By the way, here's your special Coke, Mr. D, Naruto said, passing a Coke can to him. Mr. D opened it with shaky hands and took one careful sip before he did something that shocked all the demigods in the room. He cried. Hard. And hugged Naruto just as hard. It's you. It's really you. Dionysus sobbed, holding the blonde tightly, only one person can make this Coke. Only one person who can make that taste. Everyone looked at the book like it just said Artemis had married Ares, even Ares and Zeus. Dionysus began to get nervous. Could he seriously lose this bet to a mortal? Meanwhile, the demigods were shocked. I've never seen Mr. D like that before, Annabeth murmured. It's kind of scary, Percy added quietly. Damn, Thalia muttered. Is this guy trying to kill my other? Naruto asked, noticing his other turning blue from the lack of oxygen. Nah. Hades said, getting over his shock first and waving his hand dismissively. He's just overly excited. He'll let him go in a moment, I'm sure. Meanwhile, Percy was opening and closing his mouth in shock, Thalia was taking a picture of this, Annabeth was staring at the scene with wide eyes, and Bianca and Nico was staring at the scene with bewilderment. Chiron was shaking his head in amusement. Only Naruto can make Mr. D like that. That does sound like something we'd do, Thalia said grinning. Naruto, while still being hugged, was slowly turning blue and losing oxygen. Dionysus finally noticed what he was doing and let go of the blonde and disappeared with the coke. Everyone blinked for a bit before Chiron spoke up, well, moving on then. He then turned to Bianca and Nico, seeing two new demigods here, I assume you completed the mission. Yeah, about that Percy began. What's wrong? Chiron asked. Percy was about to speak, but Naruto beat him, I'm training Bianca to be a shinobi. Naruto said, I saw potential in her and decided that she could be trained. So she's being trained to become a shinobi, Chiron said, I can see no better training, especially since she's being trained by Naruto. But Chiron. Percy, Chiron interjected calmly, you need to learn that there are many paths that can be taken. Bianca chose her own path. Percy sighed. He should stop taking it so personally. Percy sighed as well. Yeah, you really should, other me. Frank was frowning. Did this Luke destroy your trust that badly? Percy nodded. Hazel thought of something. Is that why you didn't trust Octavian when you first met him? That, and the fact that he reminded me a lot of Luke. Jason grimaced. After that, they informed Chiron about their quest. By the end, Chiron was frowning. Well, this is troubling news, Chiron said, but it's best to leave this in Artemis's hand. Hunting is in her nature. Now, let's talk about one more thing, Chiron turned to Naruto, should I gather the counselors so you can explain where you went? Naruto nodded. Chiron got up and galloped out of the big house to get the other counselors, leaving the demigods over here. 18 minutes later. Naruto was showing Bianca the different kind of weapons shinobi use, Grover is playing Mythomagic with Nico, and Annabeth and Thalia talk to Percy about their past adventure with Naruto. Speaking of which, Percy doesn't know what to think about the blonde. On one hand, Annabeth, Grover, Chiron and Thalia are friends with the blonde. On the other hand, he nearly crushed his jaws when they first met. But now, he's a lot friendlier. Can the blonde be trusted or is he like Luke? His thoughts were interrupted when he heard the door open. He turned in time to see Selena and Katie jump on Naruto and hug him just as hard as Dionysus had. Naruto. Okay, who doesn't know the blonde? That shocked the others. So he's led a lot of our friends to Camp Half-Blood, has he? Annabeth asked, stunned. Artemis was wondering just who was the blonde. Naruto hugged the girls back with equal force. Seeing the blonde again made them cry in his shoulders, but the blonde just whispered to them and comforted them. They haven't seen him for years, just like the others. Hey girls, I miss you, Naruto said in a warm voice. That only made the girls cry harder until they got off of him. Naruto turned to the door to see Charles, Clarisse, and the Stoles. Why are the girls crying? Was my other really that important? Naruto asked. Aphrodite, however, looked at the blonde slyly. Looks like the son of Hephaestus was well on his way of having a harem. She squealed mentally at the thought. Charles, it's been a long time, Naruto said, shaking the black man's hand firmly. Charles shook his hand just as firmly and smiled at his stepbrother. But it had Naruto. The whole camp misses you, it was true. When he was injured, the whole camp was in a state of depression, thinking that he was dead. The ones that were hit the most were Annabeth, Thalia, Grover, Clarisse, Katie, Selena, Charles, the Stoles, and Dionysus. Annabeth hardened her emotion during those times, Thalia did as well, Grover kept losing confidence over the years, Clarisse hid under a tough girl attitude, Katie focused on growing strawberries and rarely did anything else, Selena cried in her pillow during the nights, Charles focused on most of Naruto's project to honor his brother, the Stoles hid their depression with pranks. And Dionysus tried to drink himself out of depression. Which barely worked. Will the shocks never end, Percy exclaimed. Poseidon looked amused. A demigod that Dionysus liked enough to try and drink himself into a depression. That's a severe change, he mused. Dionysus was very concerned that he'd lose the bet he made with Dragon now. The others at camp. I think it's a pretty accurate portrayal, Piper supplied. That was how everyone except Charles and Selena acted when Percy was missing. That made Percy wince. It wasn't like he wanted to be taken away from Camp Half-Blood, but knowing that his absence made everyone hurt made him even more upset. Naruto flinched a little, but recovered, well, I'm here now, and I'm not planning on getting injured again or killed anytime soon. That's a promise. Charles smiled at that. If Naruto make a promise, he does his best to keep it. No matter what. The blonde then turned to the sons of Hermes and grinned. Hey Travis. Hey Connor. Have you done any pranks lately? The Stoles grinned and gave him a list of pranks they did. Naruto look at them and laugh when he read half the page. You're real geniuses you two. Perhaps when I settle down here, we can start planning together. The stoles hop up and down excitedly. Naruto told them stories of his achievement. He once painted his village national monument in full view, wearing an orange kill me jumpsuit just to put salt on the wound. So they have a right to admire the blonde. To be working with him is any prankster's dream. Seriously, Hermes jumped up excitedly. Naruto just grinned and nodded. I must see this. Dragon smirked and clicked a button on a remote. The screen flickered before showing a mountain range that looked similar to Mount Rushmore, but of the 4 Hokages with paint all over the faces. Everyone laughed. Hephaestus looked very amused. You definitely took after your mother, he said. Naruto looked to him sharply. Wait. My mom was a prankster. The best to grace Konoha. Hephaestus smiled. I definitely need to meet her now. Ares laughed. All of the demigods that knew of the Stoles and Naruto reputation felt shivers up their spine. The only one who didn't know is Percy, Nico, and Bianca. Naruto then turned to Clarisse and walked to her. Clarisse walked to him as well. Finally, when they got to arm's length, Clarisse let her emotions control her a little and hugged the blonde, a few tears coming out. I miss you Whiskers, Clarisse said. Naruto smiled and hugged her back. Only Thalia and Clarisse ever call him Whiskers. Miss you too, Clary-chan. Naruto responded back. Clarisse's heart fluttered, hearing her name again. In the background, Percy's jaws dropped. This week is becoming more shocking. And he's seeing something that he thought he would never see. Clarisse hugging and showing emotion. Clarisse hugging and showing emotion. Percy muttered in a daze. Percy? Nico asked. Are you okay? Brain does not compute contradictory input, Percy muttered robotically. Annabeth rolled her eyes at Percy melodramatics. But still, seeing Clarisse in such a state was shocking to any who didn't know she could be like that. After that intimate, Clarisse let go and glared at everyone. If any one of you ever mention this, I'll cut your private parts and hang them on my wall. Many of them pale and cover their precious parts, except Naruto, Annabeth, Charles, and Thalia. Percy relaxed a bit. Okay. That's the Clarisse I know. That's my girl, Ares said proudly. Well, he didn't like her showing such emotions, he let it slide because there was something about this blonde guy he liked. Plus, the threat was acceptable. I see you got that henge on, Naruto said, grinning. Clarisse smiled and enveloped herself in a puff of smoke. When the smoke cleared, Percy's jaws dropped. Clarisse was not the burly girl he saw. In her place was a girl with crimson red hair, heart-shaped face, and a more cute but strong figure, and hard purple eyes. And just like that, Percy shut down again. His jaw dropped, just like his others, and spluttered incoherently. Nico, Jason, Thalia, Annabeth, Leo, and Piper all followed suit. Hazel and Frank, not having met the girl before, were just shocked and wondering what of their friends acting this way. Naruto thought the girl looked very beautiful, but wondered why she hid it under a henge. The Olympians were in shock. Died. Did you bless my daughter or something? Ares asked, his glasses slipping off his head. Aphrodite shook her head. No, I haven't. That wasn't from a blessing, she could tell. It was Clarisse's own beauty. But she knew the headstrong daughter of Ares in this reality wasn't as beautiful as the one they were seeing. So that is one of the biggest differences here than in our world. Naruto grinned at her, making the girl blush. During those years, she used this disguise so no guy would try to take advantage of her. Especially her siblings, since they would try to rape her even if they're siblings. She also turned into a tough girl, so she would gain respect from everyone. Now, she doesn't have to use the henge anymore. Knowing the Ares cabin as well as I do, that doesn't surprise me one bit, Percy growled angrily. If ever I meet one of those guys, I'm shoving a Rasengan where the sun don't shine, Naruto growled as well. He knew very well what it was like to have to hide a part of yourself because of people like that. What are you saying about my kids, punks? Ares growled. Nothing that isn't true and appropriate punishments for your kids, Dragon said frowning. And don't bother with some lame, half-assed excuse. All of you in this room are at least guilty of allowing such a cowardly act such as rape to occur during your lives. Hell, some of you have even committed the crime. We have never condoned rape. Athena denied, aghast. Oh? Dragon raised an eyebrow. Exhibit A. Medusa, one of your virgin priestesses, was raped in your temple by Poseidon, and what do? Not comfort her, not go after her rapist, you punish her by turning into one of the most recognizable monsters in Greek history. She was dating Poseidon. She deserved to be punished. Athena screeched. No. She wasn't. I've heard that if you tell someone a lie long enough that they eventually believe it to be truth, but this is seriously overboard. Athena was about to strike down the cloaked man, but he snapped his fingers and she was thrown back into her seat. He glared at her. Whether you like it or not, you condone the rape of Medusa. Athena glared at him, but he simply glared back at her. Annabeth, however, was staring at the scene in horror. Was Dragon right? He couldn't be. Dionysus decided to keep reading, partly to get through this chapter quickly, partly to make sure he hadn't lost the bet, and partly to stop the arguing. But mainly the second one. Naruto then turned to everyone. Now let's get this meeting started. A few minutes later. After everyone settled in and took their seat, Percy asked a question he'd been wondering about. How do you know everyone over here? Percy asked. Simple, I rescued and trained every one of them, Naruto said, while the demigods, except the D'Angelo siblings, pull out their shinobi headband to prove it. I rescued all of them from abusive parents, monsters, or human problems, and trained them so they can defend themselves. Some were more impatient than others, he gave a pointed look to Annabeth, making the blonde smile sheepishly. That doesn't surprise me, Percy said looking at Annabeth in amusement. Annabeth rolled her eyes and swatted his arm. Athena nodded to herself, knowing all too well about her daughter's inquisitive nature, but she was still steaming at Dragon's comments. Annabeth learned to throw and fight with a knife, Thalia learned sword fighting and electric abilities, Luke and the Stoles learned tracking and stealth. Selena learned knife fighting and hand-to-hand combat, Clarisse learned wrestling and fighting with the spear, along with some earth abilities, Charles learned to forge weapons and axe wielding as well, Katie learned some plant abilities, and I taught Grover some martial arts ability, along with increase his tracking skills. Percy jaws drop. That's a lot of abilities. It is. Percy gaped as well. Naiko was in shock. So my sister's going to learn all that? He asked. Looks like it, Hephaestus said with a smile, his pride at his son's accomplishments was rolling off him in waves. Then, Percy got two questions. When did they been trained and what kind of abilities do you have? Naruto smiled wryly at that. I trained them when we were young and will fully train them when I'm settled in, Naruto said. As for my abilities, I can do all elemental attacks, mastered every weapon, perfected my tracking and stealth skill, and learned every jutsu known in my world. I also got eidetic memories and the power to talk to owls, as well as an increased thinking capacity and fast reflexes. Percy's got wide eyes at that. Again, this week is full of surprises. Naruto was shocked. Damn it, I'm jealous of my other. Where do I sign up to get all that? Athena smiled at him. Perhaps we can discuss you becoming my champion later, if you're interested, she suggested, making everyone turn to her, shocked. You'd allow him to be your champion, Mother Annabeth stuttered. The goddess of wisdom shrugged. Why not? He's certainly proved to be interesting, and if he's anything like his other, which I'm quite confident he is, then I believe he is worthy enough to become my champion. Well, that's not against the rules, daughter, I would at least advise waiting until we're done with this book first, Zu said. He honestly didn't want this version to become Athena's champion, but knew he couldn't stop her, as long as Naruto wasn't one of her own children. Athena frowned, but nodded anyway. Before he could ask anything else, Thalia beat him to it. Okay, now my questions. Where were you for the past years? The camp has been in a state of depression ever since you left. Most of the counselors nodded at that and looked at Naruto expectantly. I've been healing my wounds, Naruto said, showing the wound. Everyone gasped and Grover fainted on the spot. On Naruto's chest is a 2-foot-long scar that is close to his waist. Everyone looked on in horror at the wound while the Olympians winced. That had to hurt. Naruto just shrugged. Meh. Could be worse. Every head turned to him. How could it be worse? Hazel demanded. I've had a guy shove an electrically charged fist through my chest twice, Naruto deadpanned. Everyone paled. Hephaestus growled. Damn that Uchiha, he was just like his father Fugaku. The wound needed serious attention, and that wasn't the only injury. After that, I've been doing jobs for Athena. Rescuing demigods and killing monsters, including Arachne. Ah. Another one of Athena's greatest failures. Dragon said in faux grandeur. Now Athena was enraged. Oh? She said calmly, but everyone heard her carefully veiled anger. And just how is Arachne considered one of my greatest failures? Dragon wasn't intimidated. Well, depending on which form of the myth you look at, it all ends the same. You let your hubris get the better of you when Arachne was clearly the better weaver. Either way, she either became depressed or killed herself because you ruined the only thing she was good at, and you turned her into a spider out of pity. Dragon leveled a sinister grin at the wisdom goddess and said, it proves you aren't all that wise, my dear girl. Because she apparently didn't like that too much and cursed your kids to forever fear hers. He looked at Annabeth and continued, it's because of your mother, you scream at even the tiniest spiders. Annabeth shook her head wildly. No. She wouldn't listen to him. She wouldn't. Well, he's not far off on either observation, Poseidon murmured. He was bummed ever since Dragon mentioned Medusa. He knew what he did to her, and now, he regretted it. He hated it more, however, when Athena would tell that Medusa was dating him. He knew he was wrong, yes, but at least he would admit it. Everyone gasped and Annabeth whimpered in fear. Arachne is well known to the demigods, especially Athena's cabin. Speaking of demigods, Thalia, I will need to talk to you. Thalia looked curious and nodded. Okay, any more questions? Charles raised his hands. Yeah, when will you train us? Charles asked everyone silent question. Tomorrow, starting in the morning, Naruto said. Then grinned evilly at everyone, be warned though, if you think my training on the road is bad, and then prepare for the torture I will unleash on you. Many people shivered and some even whimpered. Naruto's training is the worst. You would come out with better training, but with a lot of aching muscles. They're in for torture tomorrow. The demigods were beginning to get scared. You? Frank stuttered and turned to Naruto. You're not like that, are you? Naruto just chuckled evilly. Hephaestus's face was blank. That's my boy, he said in pride. Shinobi training. Ares cheered and suddenly was standing in his seat, dressed like a stereotypical ninja with a tanto in his hands. Artemis groaned. What a child, she muttered. She turned to her brother and noticed he and Hermes were dressed the same. Apollo was standing in his seat, his hands pressed together in the ram symbol, while Hermes was hovering above his seat in a ninja jump. Both were blinking blankly at her. She groaned again. I'm surrounded by idiots. Annabeth asked the next question, how do you know the hunters? I met them at California when I was rescuing a few women from a bunch of rapists, Naruto said. They were impressed with me, especially since I brutally killed those bastards. That caught Artemis's attention. Really now? How'd he kill them? How did you kill them? Clarisse asked, eager to hear. Naruto smirked and showed all of them a picture. The men paled when they saw the picture, while the women gave Naruto cheers and smile. Everyone chuckled at Artemis for thinking the same thing as Clarisse, but every male, except Dragon and Naruto, paled at the picture. But us? Hermes exclaimed. That's just cruel. Ah. My eyes. Can't claw them out fast enough. Apollo cried. That hurts just looking at. Leo whimpered, holding his privates. Leo, if that ever happens to me, do me a solid and kill me quickly, Jason shivered, holding his privates as well. Nico and Frank were practically shivering in fear. Percy was pleading to Annabeth. Please don't do that to me, wise girl. Please. I promise to never leave you again. I'll do anything. Annabeth was grinning slyly at her boyfriend. I'll think about it, she mused, which didn't assure Percy in the least. Hera was leering at Zeus, thinking of using that against him. Zeus was shivering. Artemis and the other women were nodding as well. Good riddance to bad rubbish, the goddess of the hunt said. Well, they did deserve it, Naruto said, nodding in approval at his other's use of violence. Violence isn't the answer, but it's the only one people ever listen to, Dragon laughed. Serve those cowards right. Since then I've been working with the hunters and Artemis, rescuing other demigods, Naruto said. I also taught them that not all men are bad. One more question, Thalia said, are you gonna stay here? Naruto smiled, answering her question. Yeah, Thale-chan, I'm staying, Naruto said. Thalia beamed before Chiron walked over to the counselor and stomped his hooves to get their attention. Okay, now that all the questions are answered, Chiron started, we're gonna play a game of capture the flag. But we don't have N. Percy, Chiron interrupted, it's a friendly game we play when the hunters come here. Yeah, real friendly, Thalia muttered. Naruto smirked. So we'll be playing against the hunters, Naruto said, excellent, I've been meaning to test the hunters' skills and try out some new weapons. Everyone that knew Naruto either grinned or shivered. Naruto is a beast when it comes to fighting. Some of them started pitying the hunters. They are going to face the toughest challenge ever. Annabeth laughed evilly. They won't know what hit them, she said viciously. I'm tempted to agree, Thalia agreed. No way are the hunters getting past Naruto. Artemis was shocked, but she did have to agree. Her hunters were probably not going to win against him. Outside. After everyone left, Naruto led Thalia to the forest, with Annabeth, Percy, and Grover behind him. During the walk, Naruto had been attracting stares from the other campers, whispers, and blushes. The campers are all surprised to see Naruto, and the girls who didn't know them either had blushes or nosebleeds. After a few minutes of walking, Naruto stopped and turned to Thalia. Okay, Thalia, before I tell you anything, I need you to swear on the sticks you won't overreact and do something rash. Okay. Thalia looked suspicious, but did as he told, so did the others. Okay, Thalia, remember when you told me about your brother? Thalia nodded, but looked confused. Percy's eyes widened. Thalia has a brother. Where is he? Thalia and Jason stiffened. Percy just shook his head. I was probably asleep, he muttered. Probably, Annabeth agreed, giggling. Athena bemoaned how her daughter was in love with such an idiot. Percy, Annabeth, and Poseidon had the sudden urge to smack Athena. Well, I found him, alive and safe. He's not dead, Thalia, Naruto said, making Thalia's eyes widen. Thalia didn't say anything. Just stared at Naruto with wide eyes. Then after 5 minutes, she asked in a shaky voice, he's alive. Yes, he is. Naruto said, then his tone turned somber, but I can't tell you where he's at. Before Thalia could yell at him, Naruto stopped her and finished. The reason I can't tell is because Zeus made me swear on the sticks that I wouldn't tell the location. It was supposed to be a secret, but I found out by accident. So now, Zeus made me swear not to tell the location. And for good reason, Zeus said. I really want to say something to that, but you're right, Dragon sighed. Octavian would stop at nothing to start up another war. True, Jason and Percy growled. They looked at each other and smirked. Thalia was quiet for a few minutes. Finally, she reluctantly nodded at the blonde's words. Then, without warning, hugged Naruto and cried on his shoulder. Naruto did nothing but hold her. You better be telling the truth, Whiskers, Thalia said quietly, her tears still streaming. Her brother is alive. Her brother is safe. And there will be nothing to stop her from going to him. And that's the end, Mr. T sighed in relief, glad he didn't lose the bet with Dragon at least just yet. They still had the whole book to finish after all. Dragon laughed at him. So, who's reading next? What do you mean I'm not wise? Athena growled angrily as Dionysus finished reading. Dragon sighed and stood up. He knew this would happen. Chill out, it ain't all your fault. Damn perverted men back in ancient Greece thought up you guys and your personalities, so I get that, he said. But you've all grown into your own people, yet you fall to the labels and idiosyncrasies those men made for you. What are you referring to? Poseidon asked in a placating manner, trying to mediate between the two. Dragon looked over to Poseidon and raised an eyebrow. In reference to the point I'm making. Well, for starters, Athena is the goddess of wisdom, but the ancient Greeks had less than savory views of women in the day. So when a male god did her wrong, like in the case of Medusa, Poseidon winced, they thought her up to believe she couldn't go after you, so instead, they demean women further by creating Medusa. His argument had some merit. Most of the Olympians winced at his explanation. Hera and Artemis actually looked thoughtful at his rant, thinking about what they had done and seeing how it measured up. Apollo winced, but no one saw. He knew that he was terrible back then and wouldn't deny Dragon's accusations. That was why he was so hesitant to change back for Artemis. He had had a short fuse and murdered men for simply complaining the sun was too hot. He looked to his sister in contemplation. Perhaps Dragon had a point earlier when he said he could change some of his character to make his sister happy. He would like nothing more than to have her say, "That's my brother," with pride once more. But how would he do that? But we don't have time right now to continue this because I could go on till we're all blue in the face, Dragon continued, breaking Apollo out of his thoughts. We'll have a break soon and we'll continue on from there. Sound good? Yes, Zeus spoke up before Athena could protest. We still have a lot of chapters to read. This fight can wait until we've finished more of them. Dragon nodded and looked around. So, who wants to read next? I will, Ares said, surprising everyone but Dragon. You, Athena blurted. Read. The god of war scoffed. Yes, I can read, Owlhead, he said tersely. I am a god of war, not god of illiteracy. That's shocking, Percy said snidely. Watch yourself, brat. Ares growled as he held out his hand and the book flew into it. He flipped through the book and found their place. Chapter 5. Settling in, Ares began. Naruto walked around the camp looking at the cabins. His friends were either training, sleeping, or wandering like he was. He was enthralled by the unique cabins. Each one tells the gods or goddesses' personality and/or realm. His favorite ones are Artemis, Athena, Hephaestus, and Hermes. His least favorite are Zeus, Hera, Ares, and Aphrodite. The 4 gods and goddesses mentioned smiled. But the other 4 frowned. How come you don't like me? Aphrodite complained. I'm the most fun goddess here. That's debatable, Dragon said, making Aphrodite whirl towards him with a glare. As the goddess of love, obviously you're the most powerful person here, bar me of course. I'm the guy keeping your powers in line at the moment. He smiled and continued. But sadly, love, well, the greatest gift given to us by the Jehovah Jireh himself, it's also one of the most corruptible, as sad to admit as it is. Aphrodite frowned, but had to nod at his point. Yes. Love was powerful, but it was easily misread and corrupted for a person's own desires. Such a truth was morbid to think about, but it was true. Eris sighed sadly as well. He made a convincing argument. He strode past all the cabins, stopping at Artemis' cabin to say hello to the hunters, and went to Hephaestus' cabin. He entered in and was met by the sound of cheers of all his siblings. Best cabin at Camp Half-Blood was well. Leo contributed with a grin. Hephaestus smiled at him. I beg to differ, Percy disagreed, grinning. Cabin 3 is the best. Well, it is nice, Annabeth mumbled quietly. See, she's the smart one, so what she says is right. Percy said proudly, making Annabeth blush and the others snicker. Stupid seaweed brain, she mumbled. He laughed and kissed her forehead. You know you love me, he whispered. Only Aphrodite knows why, she whispered back and kissed his cheek. Athena fumed at the fact that her daughter preferred the Barnacle-Beard's cabin over her own. Okay, everyone calm down. Beckendor said to everyone, now, for the people who don't know him, I would like to introduce you to Naruto, our brother and protector. The original and soon to become leader of this cabin. So that's the brother that I've heard so much about, huh? Leo mused, eyeing his deceased half-brother. Seems pretty cool. Wish I could thank him for making Festus, he mumbled, though no one but the Olympians close to him, Hephaestus, Hermes, and Demeter. The forge god wondered what his son meant by that, but noticed his uncle's demigod son flinching at the sight of Charles. If only I was faster, he mumbled. Percy, there's nothing you could have done. His heart broke. The new cabin mates looked at Naruto with awe. They heard stories of Naruto. How he's a master builder, how he rescued various demigods and is protector of this camp. Because of him, this cabin was filled up with most of their brothers and sisters. 15 of them, since Hephaestus rarely ever cheated on his wife and only did so because he loves the women he had met. Hephaestus smiled softly at the thought of the women he fell for but was still disheartened at his unfaithfulness to his wife. He didn't like being unfaithful, but he was very lonely and his wife sure didn't care. Aphrodite, however, did. But her nature was far more difficult to fight than the other Olympians. She winced slightly but stayed strong to not show her emotions to the others. Her nature demanded it. Naruto smiled at them all. Hello my brothers and sisters. I hope to get to know you when I stay here. For the ones who are new here and for the ones who already know me, I'm glad to come back. One of them, a girl who is 16 years with brown hair and brown eyes, walked over to Naruto and hugged him. It's good to see you again, big brother, the girl said tearfully. Naruto smiled and hugged her back. It's good to see you too, Metellus. Naruto said, gently. Metellus is one of the people Naruto found traveling while living in camp. He found her being sold to a pedophile. The one who was trying to sell her was her stepdad. Naturally, he was mad, so he killed the dad and the pedophile in the most brutal way possible. The demigods from Camp Half-Blood and Hephaestus all slumped in sadness. Percy looked to Naruto and said, you have my utmost respect, Naruto. I remember Metellus. Poor girl was so shy and terrified of everything when a satyr brought her to camp. She wasn't saved from the situation, and it broke her. She died during the Titan War, defending her siblings during the Battle of the Labyrinth. She had finally broken out of her shell enough to fight back, but she didn't make it. Naruto was incredibly sad that a poor girl had to go through all that because he wasn't there to save her, but it also served to fuel his rage at the bastards that did that to her. He found himself congratulating his other for a job well done in killing those bastards. Hephaestus and Artemis were downtrodden as well. Hephaestus because he just heard that one of his daughters had to suffer such a tragedy, but knew he was forbidden from helping her, and Artemis because she had failed to save yet another young maiden. When he finished killing those bastards, the girl latched onto him. She sobbed on him, saying thank you over and over. Naruto comforted her till she calmed down, but she still latched on him like a lifeline. When they got to Camp Half-Blood, she flinched away from everybody, even from her siblings, and especially away from the older campers. She latched on Naruto when she can and sleep with him to keep the nightmares away. They got closer and closer over the years, closest out of all the siblings. Everyone couldn't help but feel glad that this other Metellus was able to live a better life than in their own world. So Charles, what happened to my weapons when I was gone? Charles smiled and beckoned him over to the workshop, showing all the weapons he repaired. One of them is a pistol filled with bronze bullets. Next is the assault rifle with imperial gold bullets, an endless supply of both bullets. The third is a stealth chest plate, making anyone invisible, even the Byakugan couldn't see it. The fourth was a hilt. When used, your elemental abilities is fused with it, making an elemental sword. In other words, a new version of a lightsaber. And the fifth is an endless bag of Greek fire grenades, with a timing button it. Leo suddenly had a notepad and a pen and was writing down everything. This is so awesome. He exclaimed, much to Jason's and Piper's amusement. Just how did he make both guns have an endless supply of bullets? The chest plate will be tricky to recreate, and just what is a Byakugan? Byakugan, Leo, Dragon said. A Kekkei Genkai much like the Sharingan, but gives the user X-ray vision, so to speak, the ability to see chakra following through their opponent's body and their chakra points, and 360-degree vision. In short, eyes that every child of Athena would want to have. Or doctors, either or. Annabeth pouted. The Byakugan sounded like something she wanted to have. Percy looked at her in amusement, which made Annabeth glare at him. All fit and ready to use, Charles said, holding out the pistol. Naruto grabbed the pistol and put it on his holder. Gathered all the weapons and put them in his cloak. Thanks, Charles, Naruto said, then turned to the others. Now, since I'm taking back the mantle of counselor of this cabin, I'm gonna give a brief review for those who doesn't know. Naruto crossed his arms. We're gonna do full-on training at 7 o'clock AM to 12 o'clock PM with all the other cabins. There will be no breaks, no complaints, and no chickening out. I can't protect all of you all the time, so I expect you to train to defend yourselves. Understood? Yes, sir. The Hephaestus children said firmly. Some of the older cabin mates are getting excited at finally getting to train in the shinobi ways. Naruto smiled. It's good to see some of them get excited. Kind of remind him of himself when he was younger. Slave driver, anyone? Dragon asked, laughing at the demigods' faces. Even Ares was having a hard time keeping his face impassive. Eyes worse than Percy. Frank stuttered. I am sort of glad I'm not dealing with him, Hazel whimpered. Just what the Hades did my sister get into? Naiko asked. Oh, come on. Naruto whined. It's not that bad. He could have said no sleep too. Don't give your other ideas. Jason, Piper, and Leo shouted. Hephaestus couldn't stomp down the Olympus-sized amount of pride he was feeling. His son was much like he was when he trained his own genin team. Soon, Chiron called for an assembly, and everyone walked to the dining halls to hear the announcement. There were many murmurs of excitement when they saw Naruto over here. Campers? Chiron called, we got 2 new campers and one that returned here, all claimed. Cabin 11 sighed in relief. Their place is getting way too crowded. Well, I don't mind taking in your unclaimed kids and the minor gods and goddesses' kids, Hermes said. You could either make my cabin bigger or claim your kids and have the minor gods and goddesses claim theirs. No, Zeus thundered. Things are good as they are. Cough cough bullshit. Cough cough dragon coughed loudly. Things are better. Zeus shouted, everyone laughing at him. If it were, then these guys wouldn't be here reading about their others fixing your mess, Dragon disagreed. Zeus fumed and was about to start screaming again, Ares continued. Bianca, Naiko, and Naruto took the stage. The 2 younger ones are now wearing orange shirts and blue jeans. When everyone landed their eyes on Naruto, some gasped in shock. Every older camper recognized Naruto. Hermes' children's eyes shine in heroes worship, Aphrodite's daughters look at Naruto with hungry eyes, Ares' sons glare at Naruto, along with some of Apollo's children, the hunters smile at him, along with Athena's children, and Hephaestus' children, and the nymphs all have blushes on their faces. Tyron watched in amusement when Thalia, Clarisse, Katie, Metellus, Selena, Zoe, most of the hunters including the young red-headed twins, Bianca and Annabeth, sent glares to everyone who was blushing or staring at Naruto like meat. They were either jealous or overprotective. Aphrodite squealed at all the attention that the other Naruto was being given by the girls, while many of the guys were scowling. Naruto just looked confused. Bianca and Naiko, Chiron called out. Bianca and Naiko stepped forward and a yellow-green flame instantly appeared above, forming the symbol of Hades. The campers quickly chattered until Chiron neighed loudly to get all of their attention. He bowed down, all hail Bianca and Naiko D'Angelo, children of Hades, lord of the underworld. The campers knelt and bowed their heads, along with Naruto and the hunters. Bianca wanted to ground to suck her up, while Naiko is bound to the others as well. And also, I like to reintroduce our old camper and protector, Naruto Uzumaki, son of Hephaestus and champion of Athena. All of the campers that knew Naruto, except Ares' and half of Apollo's kids, cheered in happiness. For those who don't know him, he was originally a camper of ours. He'd rescue half of our campers and helped with their training to survive. I would like for you to treat him like you would treat others. The campers broke into whispers. The older ones talked about how Naruto was back, while the younger ones talked about how it was rare for a demigod to become a champion and, in Aphrodite's case, how hot Naruto is. Naruto walked over to his table and sat with his siblings. It's nice that most everyone cares for him, Hestia said with a smile. And how he cares for others. Very few demigods share that trait nowadays, Persephone sighed sadly. Ramen, Naruto said. A bowl of ramen appeared instantly, and Naruto ate with gusto. His siblings smiled at him. Naruto loved to eat ramen, especially on a special day. As Naruto started to eat, one of Apollo's children, Michael Yu, walked over to Hephaestus' table. Man, now I want some ramen. Naruto complained. Hephaestus twitched. Oh, please don't be like your mother in that regard, Naruto. Apollo winced as his son walked over to Naruto. This was going to be painful to watch. So you're Naruto, huh? You don't look so tough, Michael said arrogantly. Naruto turned to him with a bored expression. This is coming from a guy who would run at the first sign of the war children charging at you. That got some laughs from the campers, and Michael turned red with rage. Oh yeah, well hey, don't dismiss me. Michael exclaimed when he saw Naruto turn away from him. Oh way you, I have no quarrel with you, Michael grabbed Naruto on the shoulder, but it ended up a mistake. The blonde grabbed his hand, twisted it, and sent him sprawling on the ground. Naruto's eyes turned red and sat on one knee, clutched his shoulder, and whispered in Michael's ear. "This is a fight you shouldn't pick, but if you insist I will fight you at 10 o'clock AM at the sparring field. All out with any weapon you choose. Prepare yourself, you will be fighting for your dignity." The son of Apollo was frightened by the voice, but didn't show it and nodded. He is confident that he could be him. Naruto let go of his shoulder and got back to his seat. Apollo winced. Damn. His other really had it in for the blonde son of Hephaestus. The other were glaring at him for possibly influencing his son for such petty reasons. Like they had room to talk, though. "Damn, Michael is vicious in this world," Percy commented. "Yeah. But, I can't say it's not out of character," Annabeth said. "He was pretty vindictive when he wanted to be." "Damn, little Archer nearly took out my eye one time," Thalia commented as well in a solemn tone. Apollo wondered why they were talking about his son as if he was dead. But he suddenly remembered they were from the future and it was very likely his son had died in some way. He winced even more. Everyone was silent. No one said a word. Finally, the Stoll brothers and Nico broke the silence, saying, "That was awesome." The people broke into exciting chatter. Everyone heard what Naruto whispered to Michael and was looking forward to the fight. Some of the girls are blushing. Even though it was scary, Naruto's intimidating posture was kind of hot. "He certainly does," Aphrodite purred, making her husband growl. "Certainly has the baddest thing going for him," Hermes said with a grin. He looked to Apollo and his grin turned sheepish. "Sorry about that, Apollo." Apollo shook his head, showing it was fine. Hermes frowned and wondered just what was wrong with his friend. Naruto turned to his brothers and sisters. "So are you all gonna watch me fight?" The siblings nodded and Metellus hugged Naruto in support. Metellus smiled at her big brother. "You can do it, Naruto. We know you can." "Yeah, I mean, if you can beat Ares in a sword fight we know can defeat you," one of the Hephaestus males said. Naruto smiled at his siblings for supporting him and got back to eating his ramen. After dinner was over, Naruto said goodnight to the hunters and his friends and went to bed with his siblings. When he was sure that everyone is asleep, he got out a box of cigarette and light one up. He blew out the smoke and formed a halo. Naruto raised an eyebrow. "When did I start smoking?" he asked. "That's bad for you, you know." Demeter asked in scrutiny. "You should be eating cereal." "Mother." Persephone screeched. During the years, he formed a habit of smoking like the Jonin, Asuma did. It kept him calm and relieves the stress from his body. But he sometimes had to hide his smokes because Thalia, Annabeth, Artemis, basically any of the girls who are close to him, tries to stop him from smoking, and he doesn't want that. Sighing, he put up the cigarette and got to bed, dreaming about building many weapons. "Ah, that's the reason then," Naruto said. Thalia, Annabeth and Artemis felt the need to smack Naruto, but refrained from it. They could do it later. Morning. All of the campers gathered at the arena to watch the fight or what others think, the epic beatdown. Michael is now target practicing, wearing flexible armor. The Apollo cabin is offering him encouragement for the battle. Charles got to the bench and walked towards Thalia and the others. He's on his way. He's preparing. Thalia and Annabeth nodded. Percy looked at the two, curiosity filled his eyes. "Hey guys, how strong is Naruto?" "I know his abilities, but exactly how strong?" Percy asked. The people who knew Naruto smile. "Strong enough to defeat all the younger Olympians, save for Hephaestus, Artemis, and Athena," Annabeth said, causing Percy's mouth to drop. He turned to the others, who nodded in confirmation. Everyone gaped at the declaration from the other Annabeth. Naruto was in awe that he had, in another life, rivaled gods. The demigods were amazed at the knowledge that a mere demigod, admittedly one who was already up, could reach such levels of power. However, not everyone was thrilled. Zeus shouted to the heavens and reached for his master bolt, but was met with the business end of the god killer. "Now that you've drawn your weapon," Dragon hissed darkly. "Are you willing to use it? Weapons are not meant for threats, they're for action. Are you willing to risk your life, son of Kronos?" The air turned cold at the Titan Lord's name and Zeus paled at the large gun's muzzles at his nose. He quickly sat back down, not wanting to risk getting shot by that gun for tempting the fates. Everyone else was shocked and scared at the interaction. "He's scary," Hazel whimpered. Frank nodded and shivered in his seat. "Meh," Ares shrugged. "I give it a 7 out of 10. "Naruto faced more things than we did when he just 5 years old," Grover said. Sadness filled his eyes. The other also had sadness in their eyes, making Percy confused. "What are they sad about?" "You don't want to know other me," Percy said. Before he could ask, Michael spoke up. "Where is he? Did he chicken out?" "Figures, anyone related to Athena, blood or no, is bound to chicken out," Michael said with a sneer, causing all of Athena cabin to glare at him. He didn't say anything about Hephaestus cabin, since all of them were strong. He had some form of common sense. "But to fight the guy that made them awesome?" Ares asked sarcastically. He scoffed. "Arrogant brat." Like most other pig-headed males it would seem, Artemis said haughtily. Take that back. Naruto is gonna kick your butt. Naiko said, his eyes filled with anger. Bianca would have scolded her brother, but she is angry as well. Michael sneered again. Then where is he then? Where is the so-called protector? Right behind you, waiting for you to notice me. Michael turned to the back, along with the others, to see Naruto leaning on his bostaff. Naruto's armor got their attention. His breastplate is red with brown strap lines that is crossed diagonally and 2 more that is shaped like an X on the top. His shoulder cap is triangular and kneecap is as well. The thigh of his armor is triangular as well and red pants. His shirt is long sleeve as well with the same triangular armor on the arm and forearm and brown straps on his arm as well. His boots are a combination of black and gray, a brown belt, and the armor have yellow lining. Naruto called it the dragon armor, hint hint. His bow staff is bronze metal, with imperial gold metal sharpened on the edges. Luckily, he got gloves to protect himself from cutting himself. He's also got knives in his belts to throw. The mantle of the champion. The mantle of the champion. Apollo suddenly started chanting with gusto, stars in his eyes. Hermes quickly joined him as the two jumped up and down excitedly. Meh, dragon dismissed. Meh just meh, Artemis shouted, shocking everyone but Apollo and Hermes. The mantle of the champion armor is awesome. How dare you just say meh. No denying the armor's good, Dragon admitted. But I've always been partial to King Callan's armor. It has no mobility. Poseidon shouted suddenly, making the others' eyebrows shoot up. When you're a tank, you don't need much mobility, Dragon said. Not to mention the armor has more of an intimidation factor going for it. Testify. Ares praised, suddenly appearing next to Dragon with his hand raised up. Dragon reached up and high-fived him. I agree. Hades said, now freaking the demigods out as he went and stood next to Dragon and Ares. Long live King Callan. Hephaestus shouted, appearing next to the 3 men as Hermes and Athena took point beside the defenders of the mantle of the champion. The demigods were shocked and confused. What the Hades are they talking about? Jason asked. I think it has something to do with a video game, Percy said back. Zeus groaned into his hand. I knew playing Dragon Age for your family game night was too much, Hera, he groaned. The queen of the gods rolled her eyes. I like Skyrim better, Hestia mumbled as she stroked the flames. Many cheered, while some have starry eyes when they saw the armor, though the girls blushed when they saw it. Addis, some of them thought out, others thought about what items the armor is made out of, while the girls are thinking how hot Naruto looks. The hunters, Chiron, Dionysus, the satyrs, and the nymphs looked shocked. The mantle of the champion, Grover said in awe. The others looked confused while Annabeth snapped her head at the armor. The what? The demigods, except Annabeth, said. Zoe snorted behind them. The mantle of the champion is the armor of the champion, Hawk. He was the champion of Athena and was the protector of a city called Kirkwall. Percy and Thalia turned to her in confusion, while Annabeth looked at her with curious and excited gaze. Where did he find the armor at? Annabeth asked, excited to find out. Zoe smiled in amusement. He found it during his travel with Milady and her hunters. Zoe said. The others were waiting for her to continue, but Zoe stopped there. Who is Hawk anyway? Percy murmured, with the others wondering the same thing. Athena's children look at them like they ask who Zeus was. You don't know the legend? Annabeth asked, incredulously. Hawk. The champion of Kirkwall. Savior of mages. When the demigods gave her a blank look, she and her siblings shook their heads sadly. What is this world coming to? Dragon Age lore is real in this world, Ares wailed. Why am I not there? Ooh. Artemis, Apollo, and Hermes cried, upset that their favorite game series was actually real in this world. While Percy was shocked at the Olympians' behavior, he couldn't help but look to Annabeth with a teasing smile. That does sound like you. Shut up, she snapped, blushing lightly. So the mantle of the champion is used as my champion's preferred armor in that universe. Athena mused in approval. Extremely appropriate. I approve. Nice armor, Goldilocks, Michael taunted, unfortunately, that won't help you against me. Soon, you'll feel the might of Apollo. I'm sorry son, but none can defy the power of the mantle of the champion, Apollo said gravely. Hermes nodded sagely. The supreme commander of the Grey Wardens believes differently, Dragon told the god of the sun. The savior of Kirkwall shall not be slain. Apollo shouted. Dragon gave a low chuckle. We shall see. Naruto twisted his staff around and said to the archer, I'm sorry, did you say something? Causing the archer to face fault and everyone to laugh. Michael quickly stood up and turned red with anger. One good thing about Kakashi-sensei, he really knew how to piss people off, Naruto said. Hephaestus agreed. Michael yelled in rage and launched an arrow. Naruto threw a knife and cut the arrow. Michael launched arrow after arrow with Naruto cutting them up with his throwing knives. Finally, after running out of arrows, Michael grabbed his short sword from his back and charged at Naruto. Naruto twirled his staff and met the sword with his staff. Naruto pushed back and stayed on the defensive. Michael quickly got frustrated. He kept attacking and attacking, but no cuts were appearing on Naruto, and the worst part is that Naruto is not on the offensive yet. Ooh. Bad sign. Ares interrupted himself, cackling. Finally, Michael reached his breaking point and yelled in frustration. He did a deep slash, but was met with nothing. The blonde disappeared. Michael looked around the arena till he heard the voice. "Prepare for my village secret technique." "He didn't," Hephaestus said, grinning like mad. "Oh, he did." Naruto confirmed, laughing. What's so funny?" Piper asked. "Just watch." Many of the campers paled and rubbed their butts. Everyone realizes that Naruto was going to use that technique. Michael twisted around rapidly until he felt something. He face twisted in agony until he screamed and bounced off like a hawk, holding his butt. 1,000 years of death. Michael continued to scream in pain until he landed in the lake. Every stared for a minute until they all fell down laughing. Hermes and some of Apollo cabins fell down laughing, the girls in every cabin giggled madly, Nico and Percy laughed until tears were in his eyes, Thalia was grinning like mad, Annabeth and Bianca trying to hold back their giggles. And Ares' cabin is laughing their butts off. Only the hunters and Dionysus didn't laugh, although they got smiles on their faces. The twin red-headed hunters giggled cutely, and Chiron was chuckling softly. Everyone reading couldn't help but burst into laughter, even Apollo, though he felt sorry his son was beaten in such a way. Percy and Annabeth fell to the floor laughing, taking Thalia with them, the tears refusing to let up as they did their best impressions of Joker victims. Jason and Leo were quick to follow in their footsteps as Piper, despite being a bit creeped out, was giggling like mad at the stupid technique. Nico, Hazel, and Frank were beside themselves. They couldn't stop laughing. The Olympians chuckled or laughed. Such a humiliating defeat. Ares wheezed. That technique has been pasted down from sensei to student in Konoha for generations, Hephaestus said with a chuckle. Pretty much the technique you turn to show genin that they are not invincible. That settles it. After this crummy book's done, I'm so heading to the elemental nations. Ares promised. Only Hera and Hestia were not laughing. Hera because of the vulgarity of the technique and Hestia because she was concerned about Michael's well-being. Finally, they all calmed down and Ares picked the book back up and continued reading. Okay, the winner of this fight is Naruto Uzumaki. Everyone cheered, especially his friends and siblings. Soon, his brothers, sisters, and friends carried him up and walked towards the field, leaving a dazed Michael in the water. Later. After some partying and an apology from Lee Fletcher, Apollo cabin counselor, Annabeth dragged Naruto to the forest with Percy, Thalia, Bianca, and Grover behind him. As soon as they were far enough, everyone immediately started asking questions, until Naruto stopped them. Okay, one at a time please. Naruto said with a nervous chuckle. Who's first? Annabeth raised her hand. Where did you get armor, Naruto? Annabeth asked, excitement in her voice. Naruto chuckled. He should have expected that question. It was a gift from Athena, Naruto said, she wanted me to wear it since it belonged to one of her former champion. Percy raised his hand next. Athena smiled at the mention that Hawk was her champion. The other Dragon Age 2 fans frowned and glared at her. Lucky bitch. They thought. How does Annabeth know this? Percy asked. Naruto smiled. I told Annie some stories when we were on the run. I tell it to her every night before she went to bed. She was really cute, looking at with those wide curious eyes, and always begged to tell her another. Naruto. Stop. Annabeth cried, said in embarrassment, her face red as a cherry. Or do I have to tell them about Kian back at California? Ooh. Little Annie's got some dirt on her crush, does she? Aphrodite asked cunningly. Just what was the big strong shinobi doing with the snow bitch, anyways? I don't know. I haven't lived at Annabeth's life. Annabeth hissed, her face red from the statement about her being cute when asking for another story as a kid. Get a hold of yourself, Chase. She chastised herself. You love Percy. No one else. Touché, little Annie, touché. Thalia narrowed her eyes at them, but they didn't answer her silent question. Finally, she sighed and asked her question. Okay, now who the heck is Hawk? Naruto, Grover and Annabeth just look at them in bewilderment before shaking their heads sadly. This is a sad Annie. Many people don't know about Hawk. Sad day indeed, Annabeth agreed. Grover bleated in dismay as well. Before Thalia could rage at them, Naruto started speaking. Hawk was the son of Hephaestus, known as the champion of Kirkwall. He defeated the Kunari, saved the mages, found mountains of gold at the Deep Road, and defeated Knight Commander Meredith. Before anyone could ask any more, Naruto gave them a book. If you want to learn more, read this and it will enlighten. And don't use your dyslexia as an excuse, it's in Greek. The demigod sighed, but nodded. Finally, Bianca raised her hand. When can we train? Bianca asked, a little excited. Naruto smiled. She so reminds me of me. Naruto said with a laugh. We're gonna train today. Follow me to the woods and we'll start. Naruto then made a clone, much to the surprise of Percy and Bianca, plus Naiko's excitement. Naruto pass a sheet to the clone. Pass this sheet to the counselors. Make sure they follow this list, Naruto said. If you need, make more clones so they can do their workout. Anyone above 13 has to do it. If they don't, they're gonna have to spar with me. The clone saluted and walked with Thalia, Annabeth, Grover, Percy, and Naiko. Naruto then turned to Bianca. Now, let's get training, shall we? And that's the end of that chapter. Ares said, slamming the book shut. Who reads next, punks? I shall, brother, Hephaestus said. Ares nodded and carelessly threw the book to him, and he caught it expertly. He flipped to the next chapter. Chapter 6. Training/torture, Hephaestus read, smirking slightly. The demigods looked scared while Naruto was cackling like mad. Okay, are you ready for the first time of training? After Naruto sent a clone to train the other campers, he and Bianca went deep into the woods so they can train without anyone seeing them. Ninja paranoia. Hephaestus nodded in approval. Every shinobi should be overly observant, as he liked to call it. Athena, Ares, and Zeus nodded as well, mainly because one could never be too careful, and they understood that, being the goddess of battle strategy, god of war, and king of the gods respectively. Yes, Bianca said, a little excited and afraid. Any would be excited when they're about to train in the ninja ways. Kids from both worlds. Naruto motioned her to sit down, and Bianca did. Percy, Naiko, and Leo pouted. That did sound awesome. To be trained as ninjas. Let's get to know each other first, so it won't be awkward with each other. Naruto said, I'll go first. My name Naruto Uzumaki Namikaze. I like ramen, weapons, forging, my family and friends, and training. My dislike is people who betray their friends and or family for power, rapists, perverts, Aphrodite, Hera, Ares, and Zeus. My hobbies are sparring, forging, cooking, reading, hanging out with my friends and hunting. And my dream well is to find a true safe haven for all demigods. Bianca looked at him with multiple emotions. She's liking Naruto more and more from what he told her about himself. Many smiled at his likes and hobbies and his dream, especially Hephaestus, but Hera, Aphrodite, Zeus, and Ares frowned at him, disliking them. You're lucky that I'm interested in your skills, brat, Ares growled. Otherwise, I might be offended by that remark. Naruto, who was at first intimidated meeting gods, now was comfortable enough to glare black at the war god. Then maybe you should do something worthy of my respect, he said coldly back. Leo, Jason, and Piper looked at him like he was crazy, but Percy nodded in agreement. Ares frowned at the brat before scoffing and went to moping back in his seat. My turn then, Bianca said, my name is Bianca D'Angelo. My likes are Naiko and my mom. My dislikes are perverts, jerks, and having to raise Naiko by myself. My hobby is listening to music and my dream is becoming free from responsibility. Bianca smiled at him after the last sentence, which you helped me get. Naruto smiled back at her. Naiko and Hades smiled at that. Naiko winced a bit at Bianca's dislike of having to raise him by herself, but he understood why she felt that way now. Okay, the first lesson is to focus your chakra. Even though you have it, doesn't mean you can already control it, Naruto lectured. You need to hone it before you can try to use it, otherwise it might end badly depending on the jutsu you use. Bianca nodded in understanding, absorbing everything she can. Every shinobi must know how to control their chakra, Hephaestus said, nodding sagely to Naruto's point and slipping into his Minato form. Chakra is, at its basis, still an energy source. Without the proper control of that energy, one could lose a limb or even their life. It's the same with the power we give you demigods, Zeus said firmly. We don't give you these gifts for you to take for granted. We give them to you because we know you can do great things with them. Very profound, Dragon commented. But there will always be those who would abuse that gift. Power corrupts, after all. A lesson everyone should always be wary of. What about you then? Athena asked crossly, still miffed at him. I don't care much for absolute power, he said. I'm a man of simple means. But, I'm far from stupid. I knew that getting you guys to agree to this would be difficult, and even then, you'd be difficult during the reading, so that's why I asked Chaos for some sort of protection, and she blessed me. But I also know the value of power. Like Spider-Man's Uncle Ben once said, with great power comes great responsibility. Everyone was impressed with his stance on power. The demigods and Naruto respected him for his belief. Even Zeus looked impressed, which was an impressive feat in and of itself. Athena couldn't fault his logic. She understood that they didn't, at first, want to read the book. Okay, you ready? Bianca nodded once again. Good, now close your eyes. Breathe in and breathe out. Shut down all your senses. No one is here but you. Repeat that in your head. Bianca did all that, breathing in, closing her eyes, and shutting down her senses. She did those things in the exact order until she felt the same power. The same one Naruto gave her. "I'm sensing it, Naruto," Bianca said in an excited voice. Naruto smiled. This girl was a fast learner, much like Annabeth, that was for sure. Annabeth beamed at that. Athena did as well. His eyes widened when he saw the chakra she had in her, but shook out of his surprise. She was one of the big three children, so of course she would be strong. Naturally, Hades smirked. Poseidon and Zeus shared it, but theirs was hidden, and they would swear to chaos that it never happened. Good, now try to focus on that energy and control it. Make it do your bidding, Naruto said. Bianca started targeting the energy in her body and trying to control it. It was easier said than done. Bianca started sweating a little when she started straining a little when the chakra began going wild a little. This was like trying to control Nico when he had a sugar rush. But still, she was determined to do this. She was not gonna give up just like that. Naruto believed that she could become a shinobi and she wouldn't lose his faith in her. Finally, after 15 minutes she got her chakra in her control. She panted and panted after letting go of the strain in her muscles. Very impressive for a beginner, Hephaestus praised. Hades' smile was so smug, Apollo swore he saw his uncle shine like a mini-him. Naruto smiled at her with pride, making her heart flutter a little. Good job, Bianca. You completed the first step in 15 minutes. That's fast as Annabeth and Thalia did. Now, for our next lesson. Tree climbing. Naruto helped her up and begin the next step. Tree climbing? Percy asked incredulously. How's that supposed to help? Naruto smirked. You climb it without hands. That left the others even more confused. Training field. The camper's training regimen is what you would call hell. When Naruto said you were going to train, he wasn't kidding. Various campers are doing different things. From sword fights, to hand-to-hand combat, to exercises that would make a pro wrestler sweat. Come on you maggots. Show me some steam coming out of you. My grandmothers can do better than you, mortal ones and godly ones. Naruto roared out to everyone. Some of Apollo kids are doing hundreds of push-ups with one hand, some of Ares kids are running up a hill holding up heavy bags on top of them, and Hermes kids are running laps with chakra braces that weigh 300 pounds. This is the usual training regimen Camp Half-Blood when Naruto is here. The demigods paled. That was horrifying. Even Percy didn't have that bad of a training regimen. Hephaestus, Ares, and Zeus nodded in approval. They certainly could, Hephaestus said. Naruto cackled like a madman. And that's just my warm-up. The demigods looked at him in horror. I gonna break an arm, Lee strained, pushing up and down. Some idiot from Ares' cabin said the Naruto original training regimen was too easy and can do it with one hand behind his back, so Naruto made the exercises harder. He cursed Mark for opening his big mouth. Now, they had this Tartarus-induced torture. I need to thank Mark when I see him again, Ares cackled. Speaking of Mark, he was currently sprinting up the highest hill with one hand behind his back and a bunch of angry nymphs on his tails. How he angered them. Well, let's just say that Naruto showed them a certain perverted book that Mark was hiding in his bed. And that book was filled with wood nymphs. Meaningless to say, the nymphs were bloodthirsty now. This blonde menace is a monster, Frank mumbled. Unbelievable, Annabeth grumbled. Looks like my other's doing some good there, Naruto said nodding, getting the demigods to glare at him. What? Meanwhile some of Athena kids and Ares kids were sword fighting with Naruto. Well, not sword fighting, more like a beatdown that the teens were facing. Naruto was a ruthless teacher. One of the clones crossed his sword with one of Ares' kids and slid it out of his hands. He then held up a sword at the teen's neck. Your reflexes need to become faster. You rely too much on your strength and not enough on speed or agility. Strengthen up your left hand and practice with the sword with your right hand more. The Ares kid nodded. He would have argued, but Naruto knew more than anybody about fighting. He's been fighting since he was 4. Naruto snorted. That's an understatement. Others kids were practicing hand-to-hand combat with Naruto, various techniques from the ninja world. A mixture of Ares, Athena, Hephaestus and Hermes' cabin are in that training regimen and were getting their butts beaten down by Naruto. Strengthen your kicks, curve your arms a little more and Naruto then disappear and kick the Athena child he's been fighting with under the legs, making the child fall down. Never let your guard down. Rule 1 of the shinobi world, Naruto said seriously. One I've taken granted of one too many times, so trust me when I say, always keep your guard up. The demigods nodded seriously as well, stopping themselves from asking why. The Demeter and Aphrodite cabin were practicing kunai and shuriken throwing. Some of the Aphrodite kids wanted to do it, but others had to be bribed. With a few boys hair gel and cologne. With the girls, he said he would fight shirtless at capture the flags. Even though he hated Aphrodite because she cheated on his dad, didn't mean that he hated her other children. Though he was still a bit miffed at Drew for trying to charm him into being her boyfriend. One of the clones saw Katie struggling to throw the kunai and moved to help her out. Aphrodite winced at the reminder, but didn't say anything as Hephaestus scowled and Naruto frowned. Piper groaned into her hands. That sounds like my siblings, alright, she grumbled in irritation. She knew all too well now how difficult it was to get them to do anything. Dason smiled and placed a hand on her shoulders in a comforting gesture. She looked up to him and smiled. Katie, you got to get your feet separate and your arms bent crossway. Don't think too much on it and just do it. Katie did everything Naruto instructed and made a perfect shot. Katie beamed at Naruto and hugged him. Thanks Naruto. You're welcome little sis. Demeter smiled at how her daughter had found a big brother figure in this child. Another clone is teaching the kids, including Nico, about Greek mythology and some of the Dragon Age mythology with Annabeth and Selena. They decided to tell them the history of the champion since most of the campers didn't know. The only ones that did know was Naruto, Annabeth, Selena, Katie, Chiron, Grover, the gods and goddesses, and all the satyrs and nymphs. Right now, he is telling them about the Blight. King Callan led the biggest army led in Ferelden to fight the Darkspan horde with the Grey Wardens by his side. But it was all for naught as he was betrayed by his most trusted general. The kids started shouting in outrage when they heard. Annabeth and Selena continued for him. The horde marched into Ferelden and started killing everyone in sight. Civilians, mages, soldiers, everyone. The champion's family barely escaped in time. Proof that the champion will forever be Hawk. Artemis said smugly. Without this, Hawk wouldn't become champion, Dragon said uninterestingly. Without the champion here, Hawk might not have even been alive to be champion. Deny all you want, the truth will come out. That it will, my dear. That it will. While they are reading, Clarisse and Thalia are getting ready to spar with yet another clone. Naruto wanted to see if they improve in their skills in the spear, so he brought out Cylinder, named Kasai, means fire, and changed it into a spear. Okay you two, let's see how far you two have gotten, Naruto said smirking. The two girls grinned and charged at Naruto with their spears raised. Naruto parried the two charges and sent them stumbling behind him. He turned with the same smirk, too predictable you two. Come on I know you can do better. The two got annoyed by that and did the same thing. Naruto shook his head and was about to block until he got caught by surprise. Thalia stabbed under while Clarisse aimed at his head. Naruto, wanting to protect his third leg, blocked Thalia's spear and moved his head to the side to dodge Clarisse's spear. He stepped back from them and held his spear in defensive position. Not bad, Naruto said, but you have to do better than that to make me even sweat. The girls are planning to. They have no delusion in defeating him, since Naruto is the more experienced out of every demigod, but that doesn't mean they couldn't try to hit him. Thalia slammed her spear down, making an electric current on the front, but Naruto jumped up to avoid being fried. Clarisse got on Thalia's back and jumped up before throwing the spear at Naruto. The blonde got prepared though and spun to dodge the spear and throw it back at Clarisse. Clarisse managed to grab it before it could stab her in the neck, but forced her to slide backwards a little. Naruto got down and charged the two. Thalia did the same with Clarisse not far behind. The three started clashing and parrying each other looking for a weak spot. Naruto managed to find one when the three clash against each other, Clarisse and Thalia's spear pushing on the top and bottom part of Naruto's spear. Before they could get an edge, Naruto pushed down the spear making the two spin and land on the ground, the wind knocked out of their chests. I win, Naruto said, but then saw a wound on his shoulder. Look like you two finally wounded me. Congratulations. Naruto helped Thalia up, then Clarisse. The two grinned when they saw the wound. That's my girl. Ares shouted in obvious pride. HMPH. As expected from my daughter, Zu said arrogantly. Whoa, Thalia said in shock. This Naruto must be very powerful if it took me and Clarisse to wound him. That's scary to think about, Nico said lowly. Naruto was in awe of his other skills. He was good now, but could he really be that good? Yeah. The two cheered, high-fiving each other. The two finally wounded Naruto after all these years. They were extremely happy about that, even though it was just a clone. The two saw the real Naruto and Bianca walking towards them. Bianca looked rough up and soaked. The clone poofed out, giving the information to the real Naruto. What? Annabeth stuttered. Oh yeah, Hephaestus said. I forgot the shadow clone jutsu could do that. And your son is the undisputed champion and master of it, Dragon said. His mother would be so proud. Naruto beamed at that, but before he could say anything, he was tackled to the ground by a wailing Annabeth. Teach me. She demanded, comical tears streaming down her face. You must teach me that technique. Please. I'll do anything. Anything. Someone get this crazy chick off me. Naruto pleaded as he tried to pry Annabeth off him. Percy laughed a bit and pulled her off Naruto effortlessly. Let me go. Let me go. Let me go. She whined. I've gotta learn that technique, Percy. I must. You won't learn it if you smother him, Annabeth, Percy said. Calm down first. Then I might let you ask again. I'm not asking him. I'm demanding he teach me. Athena sighed. Annabeth really took after her, it seemed. She was almost the same way when she learned of the technique. Difference was she didn't have anyone to pull her off the poor Shinobi until he finally agreed to teach her. Thalia was in shock as she noticed something. He lifted Annie with one arm like she weighed less than a feather. Just how much stronger has he gotten at Camp Jupiter? Congratulations, you two. You finally wounded me, even if it was a clone. Thalia grinned while Clarisse smiled. The two felt good when Naruto praised them, since he is stronger than anybody in the camp. Annabeth was still screaming for Naruto to teach her the technique. Naruto scooted away from her, but Percy held her tightly against himself. Thalia then turned to Bianca. I'm guessing she was training in tree climbing and water walking. Naruto nodded and Bianca winced, cracking her back a little. Those were some hard falls. Naturally, Naruto said, smirking darkly. Yeah, she took about half an hour to get the tree climbing done and another half to do water walking. Luckily, she had a teacher who's got the same amount of chakra as her, if not more. Naruto said. It would have taken Bianca all day to do those things if not for that. Yeah, good thing, otherwise I would have broken my back, Bianca said, sighing in relief that she had Naruto as a teacher. Then she looked at Naruto. Where is Naiko? He's with the other children, Naruto said, pointing at the group of kids with his clone, Annabeth, and Selena telling stories to them. My clone is telling them a story about the Dragon Age. Bianca nodded in understanding. Suddenly everyone heard a pained cry and everyone turned to see a figure flying through the field and crashing through the group. The only that wasn't surprised was Naruto. Percy suddenly had the feeling that someone was dancing on his grave, while Naruto felt like something bad was about to happen to him. Look like Percy is getting beaten down, Naruto said, chuckling a little. I knew it, the son of Poseidon sighed. My bad luck strikes again. Damn. We might actually be more alike than I originally thought, Naruto mumbled. I had the same feeling. Ooh. What's going to happen? Ares wondered eagerly. Oh, you'll see, Dragon laughed. Then he got the clone that was training Percy memory and is now clutching his nuts in pain. Thalia, Annabeth, Charles, Clarisse, Katie, and Selena went up to him, worried. The Stoles was stifling a laugh before Clarisse glared at them for even thinking about laughing at this. Naruto had a very bad feeling about this. What happened? Annabeth asked everyone's main question. Naruto wheezed in pain a little till he looked up at Annabeth from his place. Remember when I told you guys that clones can give you the memories of what happened in their end? Naruto strained out. Everyone that had shinobi training, including medalists, nodded. Well, I just got a painful memory from my clone. Moments earlier. How did he get into this? How did he enter this hell-induced training? Oh yeah, because Naruto thought that he needed to get more skilled in something else than just his sword. Even though he tried to tell them that he just needed his sword and that he wouldn't lose it. But Annabeth had to tell him about the day with the Canadians and how he couldn't use his sword because his shorts didn't have pockets. Now, he was training Naruto in hand-to-hand combat for nearly an hour and is bruised, sweaty, and tired. Percy grimaced. I guess I need to thank you. Around that time, I was pathetic. Glad to see my other won't be as bad as I was. No worries, I think, Naruto said with a shrug. My other's just trying to help yours out. Looking at Naruto, he saw that he didn't even make him sweat. He can break a horn off a minotaur, but he couldn't get one hit. Impressive feat, but any kid from the elemental nations with shinobi training could do the same thing, Hephaestus said knowledgeably. And no matter how strong you are, it does you no good if you can't hit your target, Ares said as well. Percy rolled his eyes. Yes, thank you. I know that now. Need a break, Squidhead. Naruto called out from his place. That was the name he came up for Percy. Like Annabeth called him Seaweed Brain and Thalia called him Kelphead. Now, Naruto was calling him Squidhead. Percy groaned while Naiko, Thalia, and Annabeth laughed. Squidhead Naiko sniggered. I'm going to have to use that one. You and I still have some unfinished business, D'Angelo, Percy hissed. You really want to irritate me further? Naiko paled and turned away from him quickly. Percy huffed. Thought so. Aw, lighten up, Squidhead. Thalia said, laughing as Percy turned to glare at her and everyone else laughed. No, I can fight some more, Percy said, not willing to give up just yet. Just one punch and he'll be able to relax all he wanted. Naruto shrugged and charged at him. Percy waited for him to get closer and closer. Just one punch. One punch, damn it. Then, without warning, Percy swung his arm and hit him. Right in the nuts. Every male except Hades, Zeus, Dionysus, and Ares, the latter having been thrown into fits of laughter, winced at the painful crotch shot. Naruto winced the most and actually went to cover his privates. Percy winced, knowing that strike would get his other hurt badly. Well, Dragon said with a smirk, he did say one punch. Aries couldn't even talk. Oh. Haha. My sides. Ha 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 ha. I ha 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 I can't ha 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 ha. Yeah, Percy did imply it, Thalia giggled, trying to hold in her laughter. Naruto whimpered. That hurts me. And I'm about to feel the pain as well, Percy muttered. Well, your other did just crotch shot a guy way more powerful than yourself, Perry, Dionysa said blandly. Didn't Dragon say he'd shoot you if you mispronounced anyone's name? Percy asked irritably. Only if he did so during his turn reading, Dragon said. Naruto stepped back and clutched his ball painfully, while Percy just stood there, stunned. He hit Naruto. He just hit Naruto. A smile went up face, going higher and higher, until he finally whooped in joy. His whooping stopped when he felt the intense killing intent in the air as strong as Hades' presence. He slowly turned around to see Naruto arms and legs in flames. Said person is glaring at him with literal fire in his eyes. You, Naruto whispered in a deadly voice that can make the big three wet their pants. The fire increased and he got into Taijutsu stance, just messed with fire, Percy gulped. He was dead. Dynamic entry. Bang. Yep, I expected that, Percy said wincing. Present. Everyone in the field wince either for Percy or Naruto. Both of those things are really painful. Some of the unfortunate people experienced the fire entry kick. Mainly Apollo, Hermes, and Ares' cabin. Hermes and Apollo because of the pranks. Ares because of their arrogance. Stupid seaweed brain, Annabeth said, scowling and face-palming at the same time. When I get my hands on him. Percy winced. Hearing his wise girl say that, even if it wasn't his wise girl, was painful and made him very jealous. Annabeth noticed this and kissed him. You're the only idiot for me, seaweed brain, she whispered next to his cheek. He smiled down at her and hugged her close. Athena was fuming at the scene. No worry Annabeth, Naruto said, healing up quickly. Thank you Uzumaki DNA, we can think of prank to do to him later. Right now, let's go to the big house. There's a meeting we need to go to anyways. Everyone nodded and some of the shinobi demigods, Thalia, Clarisse, the Stoles, and Annabeth, smirk evilly, thinking of the pranks they can pull. Many step back in fear. One of them pranking is bad enough, two or all of them. Feel sympathy for the poor soul that angered them. I fear for my life, Percy whispered while everyone laughed. Big house. Everyone is in the big house, waiting for Chiron so they could plan for capture the flag. Travis and Connor are talking rapidly about the pranks they can pull with Naruto. Annabeth and Thalia planning the prank they will pull on Percy for kicking Naruto in the balls. Seeing Naruto after years of him missing, they won't allow anyone to hurt them, but themselves and the other girls. Selena is talking to Katie and Bianca about ways to throw shuriken. Lee is trying to get some rest from that hellish training. Percy is doing the same as well, all healed up but still tired. And Clarisse and Naruto are talking about the kinds of weapons. Finally, Chiron came in and clamped his hooves. Okay counselors, we are here to talk strategy on how to defeat the hunters of Artemis. He dropped his serious and looked pleadingly at everyone. He might have gotten on his knees if he wasn't half horse. Does anyone have a plan? Anything? Hazel and Frank were shocked at this, while the others barely blinked. Artemis beamed at how her hunters were so good that even Chiron was desperate for a way to beat them. Are the hunters really that good? Naruto asked. Yes, was the unanimous chorus of demigods and Olympians, with only Artemis and Thalia, as a proud hunter of Artemis now, saying it proudly. Well, I got something, Naruto said, and everyone turned to him. Everyone, except Percy and Bianca, got at his face and practically yelled, tell us. Even Chiron did it. Naruto, Bianca and Percy sweat drop at that. The hunters must have never lost. They never have, Artemis said smugly. Until today. Dragon said with a grin. Oh? Artemis glared at him. What makes you so sure? Rule 1. Never bet against Naruto. And that's all there is to it. Naruto blushed. Why never bet against me? You'll find out, Dragon said mysteriously. Okay, first, get off. Naruto yelled and everyone got off and rubbed their heads a little sheepish at how they reacted. Okay now, we need Annabeth as one of the leaders since she got a good head on her and won't let her emotion gain control of her. Annabeth blushed at the praise, making Percy make a fist, then she looked up in confusion. Wait, what do you mean one of the leaders? Annabeth asked. Why not just have one leader instead of many? Because I found a flaw in your plan. You always make the same predictable plan, making the hunters fight easier. You didn't make a new plan or at least make changes. Many face-palmed or blushed at that. What he said is correct. Annabeth blushed and looked down. Now that someone pointed it out, it was true. Also, one leader can't lead all the campers. You would need various people to lead them. The people nodded in understanding. Okay, there will be 4 ring leaders since there are 8 cabins. Each leader will lead 2 cabins. The first group is Aphrodite and Ares' cabin led by Clarisse. Clarisse nodded and smiled. She's not going to disappoint Naruto. Athena and Hephaestus' cabin will be led by Annabeth. Annabeth nodded as well. Demeter and Dionysus will be led by Thalia. Said girl grinned in excitement. Apollo and Hermes' cabin will be led by Percy. Wait a minute, why me? Percy asked, confused. Why would Naruto want him to become the leader of one of the groups? People would have thought that he would choose someone familiar to lead. Because Squid Head, even though you rely on luck and your sword, from what Annabeth told me you are a natural born leader. I want to put that to the test. Percy nodded, not saying anything else. The praise made Percy smile. At least this version of Naruto was impressed with one aspect about him. That was something. Any objections? No one raised their hands, since Naruto is a good planner, better than Athena cabin. Seeing how he's my champion, I must say, admittedly, that may be true, Athena said reluctantly. Since he is not originally one of my children, he doesn't look at a plan like a blueprint like my children do. He sees a chessboard, the pieces moving and maneuvering into traps in more favorable positions. Not to mention that Naruto's a kinetic thinker, Dragon said, surprising Athena. Naruto's better at thinking on his feet, always moving and adapting the plan accordingly. With your blessing, he applies to his planning in all aspects and creates near flawless plans. Athena nodded, impressed with the guy despite the dispute they had earlier. Good, then let's prepare to win this time. Everyone cheered. For the first time, they have a possibility of winning. And Naruto started outlaying the strategy to everyone. Artemis wasn't worried. My hunters will win, she said confidently. Apollo was suddenly struck with inspiration on how to reconnect with his sister. I don't know Artie, he said lightly, making Artemis glare at him. I think I'll take that bet. If you're right and your hunters do win, he swallowed, trying to force down his pride and the horror he felt from his next statement. I'll stop flirting with your hunters for 2 whole years. There he said it. Everyone turned to Apollo in shock. Dragon, however, grinned knowingly. Looks like Apollo was taking the first step. Artemis turned her whole attention to her brother. What was her brother up to? And if on the off chance they lose? You admit that he whispered something in her ear, making her blush brightly and shake her head defiantly. No. She shouted, shocking the demigods and Olympians. Never. It took all of Apollo's willpower to not cave and ask for something she'd be willing to do, and for his next sentence. Take it or leave it, he said coldly. Of course, you could chicken out and be labeled a coward. Your choice. Everyone was shocked at Apollo's change in demeanor. None more so than Artemis. She reeled back like her brother had hit her. That wasn't a face or tone she had heard from him in so long that she almost forgot he was capable of it. It was before he became a skirt chaser. She was so shocked that she stuttered, I'm not a coward. Then prove it. He narrowed his eyes at her. She forced herself not to look intimidated. Fine. Deal. She confirmed and shook her brother's hand. He nodded to her and looked away, trying to console himself for using such a tactic against his sister. Dragon smiled as everyone else gaped. Well. That was interesting. Who's reading next? He asked. End chapter. So this part ends here. If you want to see next part of this series, like the video now and share the story with your friends. Bye bye.